Welcome to 10 Minute Climate, the podcast brought to you by Beaverbrook Energy. Join Max.
Hi, I'm Max.
And Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony.
Who between them have got over 70 years of experience in the energy industry, and they're here to share it with you. It's everything you need to know, delivered in just 10 minutes.
All right, ships versus cables. So half of all ships in volume?
Ship movements, I think.
Ship movements, okay.
Ship movements, yeah.
Either way, half of all ships, let's say,
Yeah.
transporting energy around the world. And I think I saw a statistic this week that one shipment of 5,000 electric vehicles, assuming those cars last 20 years, will displace something like 830 shipments of crude oil, which is kind of crazy.
Wow, that's quite a big number. I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
And what I wonder is whether, we're moving from a world where energy is moved around by ships to energy is moved around by cables. We're seeing these big projects for connecting Morocco, deserts of Morocco, piping solar up to the UK. There's a project to put a cable across the Atlantic, which obviously been done for telecoms for years.
We're already connected to Norway, Belgium, Ireland,
Yeah.
France. There's a north to south connector from the Scottish wind farms down through the Irish Sea.
And there's another one coming in the North Sea.
Yeah, which is sensible because the energy is in the wrong place, if you like. The raw energy has been for years. In that you tend to have oil fields in low populated areas, and you need to move the energy to where, and that explains the pipelines and the ships and tankers and everything else. But also, when we go to renewables, we've got the sun driving the wind and also solar energy by the energy that impacts on the planet.
Yeah.
And that's only ever on one side of the planet at a time.
But it's always on one side of the planet.
Yes. Yeah. So if we can get a system whereby we can move it around successfully, you come down to the utopia of world government and one system that covers the whole planet.
Well, you do, but I mean, we have it for the internet. We have it for communications.
Yeah.
We tried to do it on satellites, but kind of actually most comms are cables now.
But you'll also find that you get situations like there's a certain Russian gentleman at the moment who keeps opening and closing the stops on a big gas pipeline.
Or the Chinese ship, possibly under Russian influence, that dragged its anchor for 100 miles and tore up communication cables. So, you get that. But I mean, you can have blockades of ships as well.
Yeah,
It's
a bit
not
more
that
expensive
dangerous.
and not probably since the Napoleonic Wars.
But you were talking about how, I remember we were talking the other day that post was originally all taken by ship, right? So that's
Packets
where
used to
messaging went.
leave Falmouth and disappear all over the world, and it was a regular service and delivered an international communication system to a global empire. And then in the next 200 years, from sort of 1700 to 1900, most of that was replaced by overland and undersea cables. That communication system.
So we did it before.
Yeah.
For that, there's no physical reason we can't put the cables on the sea. They're just cables. You have high voltage DC cables instead of AC cables. It's a slightly different technology.
Yeah.
But it's done. I think in China there's 3,000 kilometer cables for high voltage DC, something like that. They've it's just a cable.
There's technical reasons why if you do it that way, you get less energy drop between one end and the other, because every time you get something like a big cable heating up or whatever, you're losing some of the energy going through it, and that's a sensible way. But I think the major issue for the world is the political connotations of someone being able to control remotely your supply of energy. Germany has been very fortunate for a couple of winters in that they've been relatively mild winters, and since it shut its nuclear fleet down and it's trying to reduce its coal, they're very reliant on Russian gas, which I think most people will realise that there's a big red flag there.
But how they rely on Russian gas? It's a pipeline, right?
Yeah.
It's not a cable. It's a pipeline, but it's more or less the same thing. It's a line on a map. It comes from somewhere. It goes somewhere else, and someone one end can turn it off. We're used to that. There are pipelines everywhere. I mean, Canada all the way through the US, from Russia, Azerbaijan through to Europe. Plenty of pipelines in China. It's so we have that already. We have plenty of ships. You can have blockades. Okay, it's maybe more difficult and more politically unacceptable to blockade.
Ships are probably considered to be more independent, politically independent.
It seems to me like that analogy of sending mail out on ships, being replaced by cables
Yeah.
It's probably going to happen because you say there's solar somewhere in the world all the time. And if we have a global network of wires, bang, off we go.
Yeah, and I think it's something that if they got together for a COP every year and discussed how to do that, they'd probably progress things a lot more than most of the discussions they seem to have.
So why are they not? I mean, it's physically, it's just physically not.
I think the problem
difficult.
is that we come back to things we've touched on previously, that the political clout of the oil and gas lobby is absolutely huge globally. They can buy politicians and governments, literally. And you're talking about putting a system into place which makes their entire industry redundant.
You could argue within China, which has, roughly 20% of the world's population, they're doing it already. They've got these high voltage.
Yeah, but they see that as an advantage to them.
Yes.
The transition to renewable energy is the only thing that the developed Western world has not been front footing on. Everything else they've done from the Industrial Revolution to today, telecommunications, missile technology, flight, all of those sorts of things, they led the world in everything. They committed early, they invested heavily, and they led the world in everything. They haven't done it with renewables.
But what you just said, China have committed early, made massive investments, and make what I think this year it's 59% of all renewable energy investments come from them. They control the supply chain across all major technologies and the underlying supply chains, roughly 80%.
Yep.
And we've got to be very thankful. I mean, whenever I write my newsletter, China's always there.
Yep.
Always there. And I think the next generation is going to have a hell of a lot.
But they have a controlled economy. So they're driving 10, 15, 20, 25 year investment programs to get to an end result that they see as long-term beneficial for the country. They're going to disconnect themselves from the world's energy markets, which are subject to the variations of politics and all sorts of other things. They're going to be in a position where they're actually going to be energy independent of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And in the past, the West has been able to, if you like, sort of control rebellious upstart countries by saying, well, we'll switch your oil off.
Yeah.
And we'll switch your technology off. And China's like, we manufacture the world's technology and we don't need your oil. I mean, there is cyclic history in the East and the West have been...
Let's not get too much into that. I think we can finish this by saying, look, China's ahead. They're doing it. Yeah. What we need is a world government run by you.
Yeah, obviously.
A lot of solar.
Yeah.
Cables around the world. Job done.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps us grow and continue bringing you valuable content. If you're curious to learn more about Beaverbrook Energy and how we're navigating the future of energy, feel free to reach out to us directly. And for those looking for quick, actionable insights on the energy transition, be sure to subscribe to our 10-second climate newsletter, delivered every weekend with essential intelligence to help business leaders stay ahead of the curve. We appreciate you listening, and we look forward to having you join us again next time. Stay informed, stay engaged, and take care.